Welcome to Exploring the Ozarks, where we tell the history and stories of locations, places, and people that make up the Ozarks. Here's Matt!
Thank you, David. Your Hollywood voice is getting better every week.
Thank you.
I got to applaud you for that.
I feel a little intimidated because we're here in the presence of an actual DJ.
Oh, man. No pressure at all.
No pressure at all.
Hey, everybody. This is Matt Graham with Exploring the Ozarks. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Matt Graham.
That was the phone.
Oh,
good. That was Ryan.
Oh, good,
I
Ryan.
think he wanted to make his presence known.
Oh, thanks, Ryan. We'll introduce you in a second, so calm down, all right? But we are here at Springfield Studio One for this podcast. Check them out if you need to record your own podcast. It's a really stellar podcast room.
I think it's better every week.
And we're going to be having more podcasts coming out of this room here pretty quick, so stay tuned to that. But check them out if you need to record your own podcast, put on a small play. Mr. David Carr here has done such a good job with his studio that he's got stage space that the Springfield Improv likes to operate out of.
Yeah, and they do classes out of here, too.
He's very modest, but A&E was here last week filming a documentary piece, I believe.
Series, yeah. That's all I can say. They did make me sign things. So
he's so modest. Freaking A&E over here, like it's no big deal.
I know. I was like, of course I can have you guys here.
Yeah, sure. And I came in last week. I'm like, who the hell are all these people in here? He's like, oh, it's just A&E. I'm like, just A&E.
Just that.
Okay, fine. But if you want to play music, we're always looking for new music acts to be coming through, which there's not a shortage of those, or just need a space to rent for an event, or if you want to even film your own mini-series or whatnot, he has space for that. So,
yes. And I should say the website is now working really well, springfieldstudio1.com.
Perfect.
So if you have any other questions, go there and you can learn all the stuff.
Hit contact us. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the podcasting sites like Spotify and iTunes Store, or anything that your kids use, we're probably on it as well.
Yes.
So David, talk to us a little bit about Patreon and what that is and what that means to us.
Patreon, well, so we do have business sponsors, which if you want to sponsor and you're a business or a person that has a notable influence around here, please contact us. But for everybody else, it's an audience member, doesn't want to pay $300,000, $400,000, $1,000 a month, then we'll take it. Mm-hmm. Patreon is the answer for you. We have $5, $10, $25 tiers. You go in there, it takes out once a month, and it helps support everything that we're doing here. All the stories that we tell, the people that we can have on, nobody's charged to come on. So any support that you can provide is great, and it all just goes back into telling these stories.
Right. And we do have sponsorships available. We do have people lined up for this, but we just came out with our pricing. So if you want to get involved in this and keep helping us exploring the Ozarks, please hit us up. Hit me up at 417-209-8532 or at springfieldstudio1.com or creativeendeavors.com. So anyways, let's get to what brings us here today. I'm pretty excited. I say that every week, man, but every week
we get such good guests on here.
We do, man. Yeah. Our guest list has been killer and we've just started this back basically in late December, January.
Yeah. We're on episodes. This is 7.
Yeah, we've got a lot pumping out here, so we really appreciate everybody's input, everybody's support with this. It's done pretty well so far, so we're pretty excited about it. But we want to bring on some always the really cool guests, and it's all happened pretty organically. So we appreciate everybody reaching out and giving us ideas. Keep that coming. Today we have Mr. David Romano, who's an MSU professional professor, Rick Kaufman with Hits and Grins, DJ Service, and they are part of what's called the River Access Coalition. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
And we also have Mr. Ryan Pigg with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
There's now a picture on the screen showing him.
Yes, in post. And Ryan, we still got you on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Very good. Thanks for being with us, Ryan. We appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for being here. So we're going to get to know you guys a little bit first because we'd like to go back and give credibility to what you guys are doing. And, being that you're an MSU professor, what do you teach over there, David?
I teach Middle East politics and international relations.
Why Middle East, David?
Well, I got interested a long while back. I could go on for a while on this, but my specialty is the Kurdish minority.
Kurdish minority, which is not a very easy tribe to find while you're out in the Middle East. Tell us a little bit about your Middle East travels real quick.
I've cycled through much of the Middle East back in the mid-'90s, including in southeastern Turkey and northern Iraq during the Civil War. There.
Just during a small civil war.
Wow. Yeah.
And you're on a bike?
Right. That's back when I was like 24 and you think you're invincible and so forth.
Remember, you told one story because Professor Romano here was one of my teachers. He was telling a story in class one time about how he had to evade the police or something like that. Like you were jumping the fence and you left your friend behind, or he left you behind, or
oh yeah,
good place to do that, right?
He does that around here too.
Remember that? Okay. It had a good ending, if I remember correctly.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Not just a civil war going on with the Kurds in northern Iraq.
I don't even tell my students that anymore.
Oh, goodness. I'm sorry. I can always delete this if you want me to.
No,
that's great.
fine.
They're going to know now. But
I can't remember how that even came up in class then. That was...
Well, you got to give credibility to what you're teaching too, right?
Sure,
so you're like,
true.
I've been there, I've done that, I've seen it firsthand. And is that what propelled you to want to be a professor at MSU? How did that come about after your travels?
Yeah, well, I took off like 2 years after my MA trying to figure out what to do with myself. I worked odd jobs, painter, ski patroller in Canada, tourist guide in Israel, and I had some money saved up. And from Israel, I took my bike on a ferry to Cyprus and then to Turkey and started riding with my tent on the back. And I was supposed to go with some other guys. They flaked out on me, so I went by myself.
They're like, did you say Civil War?
Right, exactly.
I think I'm going to bail on this one. But good luck to you.
Well, the Dutch guy who was supposed to come with me, he got drafted into the Dutch army because they still had the draft back then.
Wow.
So he had a good excuse, but the British guy just flaked out.
British guy. They always flake out, right?
I understand why he may be leery about going through the Middle East, though, as a British guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
there's
like,
a little political humor there, but...
Well, yeah, they've got a history there, but he's like, you're on a bike, so I'm
So
out.
you may understand, though, now why I tend to refer to him as Indiana Jones professor at MSU.
He's talked about you a lot in that respect, and that's what piqued my interest.
We just need to get you a bullwhip, I think. Yeah.
Dude, we might have one around here, actually. If not, I've got one at home. But you know, having you have that experience, how long was it before you became a professor then? I mean, what was your...
After everything I saw, and especially in Turkey and Iraqi Kurdistan during that trip, I said, okay, I can go back and do research on this because I want to learn more about the Kurds. Like, they're only the world's largest stateless nation, like 40 million of them.
Wow.
And there was nothing, no books on them, hardly at all.
Wow.
And so I went back and did my PhD in Toronto in Canada, and then I published some books, and I got this job.
Man.
And now you consult all over the place, too, for Kurdish information stuff like that.
Do you speak the Kurd language?
I speak Turkish. I speak Hebrew. My first language is French. My Kurdish, the Sorani dialect, is passable now, and I've got some basic Arabic.
Man, no big deal.
It just throws the stuff out there like, no, it's
no big deal. So you're the smartest man in the room everywhere you go. I really felt good about myself until just now. Let's move on to Rick. So, Rick, tell us what you do.
What an act to follow.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry.
And you hang out with this guy all the time?
I do. We've got some common interests, actually.
Man. Well, you guys.
Well, we should state here, David is very understated. He doesn't really talk about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
He just does it.
That's the kind of people I like, though. You know, because you're the ones that make things happen, but you don't really require a lot of credit for it. So that means you got a big heart too. So, so Rick, tell us what you do as your day job as well. Then.
Well, I have a mobile entertainment company where we provide mobile DJs for weddings, class reunions, you know, all kinds of events, and we have a portable casino company where we provide all the games, blackjack, craps, roulette, slot machines, and the dealers, and we do a lot of corporate events with that, and I've been doing it I started my company in 1986 and probably been doing the casino thing for about 25 years.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Those do really well. I see those around all the time.
They're so much fun.
Pre-COVID, feels like. Seemed like every other
We
night.
shut down during COVID,
yeah.
but we're back.
Okay.
And actually, we're expanding this year because the companies that are using us now are, it doesn't seem like there's as many choices for them. So we're, the fact that we stuck it out has been a good thing for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and what's the name of your company?
It's called Hits and Grins.
Hits and Grins, all the way around.
Hits and Grins, yeah.
Good deal. And so what brought you to being an entrepreneur? You just didn't like working for people? Or
well, I like to party, actually, but in my younger days.
All right.
But, you know, I started off working in skating rinks as the floor guard guy that played the records when I was 14. I knew then what direction I wanted to go. I just loved being able to see the reaction of how to really manipulate people with music, you know. and it's so fun. You bring them up, you bring them down, you know, you have fun with it, and it's been something I've been a natural at. And as just people have called me, and that's how I got into it. It's just people never stop calling. So
well, that's a good problem to have. But, you said that, you know, before we got on here, you worked at Skateland, correct?
I started off at a skating rink called Skateland, which is no longer around. It was over by the old Bass Pro or the old Brown Derby building on South Campbell. There used to be a skating rink there. It's a car lot now.
I think it's... Isn't there a Skateland down there?
There is a Skateland on down south, but that's
different.
Yeah, this was back in I started in 1974 at the skating rink over there, and then I think in 1976 I switched over. There was another rink that came to town called Skateport.
Yeah,
a great big rink.
Loved it.
I worked there from the time I was 16 till I was 21, and then I went into nightclubs and radio after that.
Oh, very cool. Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool. You definitely have a voice for it.
Well, thank you.
We were on the radio for a while, and people told me I had a face for radio, so that was flattering.
And now we're doing video podcasts.
Yeah. Wonderful idea. So far, it's working out. But so, hey, Ryan, we've got you on the line. Tell us more. You've got a company called Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, correct?
Yeah, it's actually not a company. It's a nonprofit that I'm a volunteer for here in the state of Missouri. So I serve on the board of directors for it, which is, like I said, nonprofit, all volunteer organization for advocacy and access for public lands and waters for, you know, the interest of hunters and anglers.
Well, that's a big deal here in Missouri.
Gosh.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what? Tell us more about that then. So how did all of that come about for you to be a part of that organization? And tell us, I'd say maybe specifically some projects that you guys are trying to protect.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm a volunteer. I found Backcountry Hunters and Anglers because born and raised here in Missouri. Spent a lot of time fishing and hunting in the Ozarks myself. I live here in the KC area now. And then found out about just a lot of the issues that was happening out west because I spent some time living out in California and started seeing just different areas that were getting closed off to the public, whether that be easements getting taken away, land access getting taken away, and, you know, people just, you know, living their daily lives. It kind of happens in small increments. So when I moved back here to Missouri, I started seeing some of those same things happening here. So did what I could do to find a way to get involved, and that was through Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. So we have, you know, a little more colloquial, just we are BHA. It's a little easier to say in the full terminology. But yeah, I've served on the board since we started up our state chapter in 2018. And the things that we focus on, working in issues just like this, that's how David Romano and I came to know each other. We are involved here both locally, but also continue to support and engage with other issues throughout the entire U.S. We have state chapters in almost all 50 states now. Not quite to all full 50, but yeah, the U.S. and Canada.
Wow.
And it's
biggest organization I've never heard of. Then,
yeah,
really.
it's impressive.
You know,
yeah. Well, it's still a small organization. We started originally it started as the Montana Backcountry Hunters and Anglers because there was issues going on in Montana, and then just over time, the founders started growing it, and you know, it became, like I said, a national nonprofit in the U.S. and Canada.
Well, and that brings us to what our topic is for today, and that's a good segue into what we're about to talk about, which is something that, you know, I think a lot of people have heard in the news the last few years and, you know, have seen I'm just going to hit you with it, the lawsuits, the back and forth with county and things like that. What we're going to talk about right now is something that I kind of hold close to my heart, too, because I grew up in Christian County my whole life. But everybody's heard about the Linden Lure access and how it was shut down, how there was a fight over it, how it became a big thing in the news that I probably heard once a month, it felt like. And then for you to say that you guys go around the country doing this and trying to gain more access for people to be able to access these rivers that we all pay taxes for and want to enjoy, it says a lot about you guys that you took on quite the baby there, that you felt good enough about what your case was that you guys wanted to pursue this case. So the case itself, for those that aren't familiar, was, well, I'll let you guys tell it from the beginning. I mean, where did this start? What put it on your heart to want to do this? And let's talk about what happened.
Well, sure. Like the Linden Lure Access is probably the most popular swimming hole in Southwest Missouri.
Absolutely.
By far.
I'm just going to nod because I don't have a lot of experience with access, but on Linden Lure, actually.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And I moved here 12 years ago, and almost the first year I was here, I found it, and my kids learned to swim there. My son was 2 when we moved here, and my daughter wasn't even born, and they kind of grew up going there, and then suddenly there were problems there sometimes, especially at night,
Yeah.
like any public place, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so in like 2017, my family volunteered for this new clean stream team that they created to help pick up litter and stuff like that, because there was way too much litter and so forth. And then in March 2020, on the Clean Streams Facebook page, I saw a photo saying, "That's it. Access to the Linden Lore's been blocked off by the property owner," and it showed a picture of these big concrete blocks and a gate over Canyon Road, which leads over there. And
was that truly privately owned, though?
Well, that's what I asked myself. I was like, it shows on all the maps as a public road.
And there's signs for public access, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's even a sign that says, by municipal bylaw, no access after 10 p.m.,
which is like conservation stuff.
Well, you don't do that for someone's private driveway, right? You don't pass a bylaw.
No, you create signs for it and everything else. Yeah.
So I started asking questions, and on the Facebook group, it was like half landowners, half members of the public like me, and the landowners started getting really aggressive with me. They were all landowners from the area and kind of insulting me on the Facebook page. And so then I started digging around, and I found more and more evidence that it was public to begin with.
Which they would probably know that.
Right. And the county commission stonewalled me, wouldn't respond. I started digging. And so finally I was like, okay, it's public and something wrong's happening here. And but, who am I? I'm just a guy who's been living here like 12 years or so, or 10 years at the time. And I just started a Facebook group to gather people to help me out, and it mushroomed like faster than I could blink. It's got like 4,000 members now.
Yep. What's the name of it?
It's the River Access Coalition.
That's it. Okay, just making sure.
And I think it got like 1,000 members within a week when I created it. And that's where I made contact with people like Rick and Adam, who became my partner, one of the smartest guys I ever met. And he works in a funeral home. I think he should be a professor from all the research he did on Linden Lore and its public status and so forth.
Wow.
And we started the fight we had to fight the county too, when it's the county that should have been telling the landowners, no, this is public, you can't close it.
Absolutely.
But the county was kind of like in cahoots. The commissioner at the time was in cahoots with the landowners. He told us himself he has buddies who live up above the dam and want it closed, and so he wouldn't even meet with us. And in that kind of circumstance, you start raising money and you go to court.
And that's what you have to do, though, is you have to fight it. You can't just let it go by the wayside, because it is a good old boy society in our area. I get it. I've grown up here my whole life, so I totally get that. But to put your buddy's interests over the interests of the people that you serve ultimately is I'm going to have to hold my opinion back, but basically it's way too selfish for our government to be that way in a small capacity like this. We're talking about a river access, for God's sakes.
Right.
And I have seen a lot of things happen down there that would probably make you raise your eyebrows and go, well, there does need to be some policing going on, probably.
Sure.
But then our police is kind of overwhelmed with things in Christian County as it is. So how did you guys start this fight? I mean, first, how did you find the research that it was public? Just for the simple fact that there might be more of these, that people, maybe this strikes a chord in them. So how did you guys find, Rick, how did you guys find out that it was public?
Actually, I knew when this happened. I knew it was wrong. I had some run-ins in the past. I'm an avid fly fisherman and even had a podcast about fly fishing for a few years. But I knew it was wrong. I was fly fishing down below Roaring River in Cassville, and one of the landowners' son-in-laws came down, who happened to be a deputy sheriff, and tried to run me off of the creek, and told me I couldn't park there at the bridge, and told me that I couldn't do that, and and I was like, okay, anyway, I got back. I called the Missouri Department of Conservation and had a long visit with those guys, who sent me all kinds of information about the last Supreme Court ruling in 1954, Elder versus Delcor, which established stream rights for the public in the state, and
Wow.
it's still basically an unsettled case to a certain extent, but all the laws that were followed during this case were mostly logging laws from the past. So, commerce was involved, and that seems to be the
Driving force,
one of the
probably,
driving
yeah.
forces, of course, on whether a river is public or not. But in that case, it also says that if you can float a railroad size size log down the river, then that makes it passable. There's lots of other information on it that goes either way, but you'll find plenty of stuff that supports what we try to say, and it's a fine line between the landowners, and I understand their point to a certain extent, but you just can't close off, and a river's considered a public highway.
Right. Exactly.
And so I knew it was wrong. I grew up down there here in Missouri, here in the Ozarks, going there during high school, big hangout back in the 70s, the 80s. Then the 90s come around. I'm taking my own kids down there, and now it's my grandkids. So that's what I'm fighting for. This is something that belongs to the public. And that's where I saw that it stemmed from. I knew that they weren't right. They just couldn't take it because they had money.
Right.
Well, they were also, the county was grading that road regularly. You don't do that for someone's private driveway. At least no one grades my driveway.
Oh,
There
God.
were lots of things.
If they did, I'd be pretty happy myself.
Me too.
Yeah.
So we even did, Adam, the fellow I told you about, who's our treasurer, he did a Freedom of Information Act request. Well, we did a couple. It's almost like we were harassing them. We weren't. We just needed some info.
Good for you, though.
One of
I
the
think they would just give it to you. I mean,
Well, so that in itself is interesting because that is a whole entire process itself.
Yeah.
You can't just go on a website and say, this is what I want, type it in, keyword search, and things pop up. You actually have to request that stuff.
Yeah, and they'll try to say, oh, the request is too broad, we can't fulfill it, or, there's all kinds of things. So you have to phrase it just right. And what we got through one of those requests was back, there were big floods around there in 2015.
Yep.
yeah.
They used FEMA money to fix the road and dump gravel on it and this and that. And now they're saying it's private and they're sticking a gate up there.
Oh, man, wow.
So we said, okay. And we found maps, and they told all their road crews not to talk to us. So we found one who doesn't work for them anymore. And he was like, yeah, I graded it right up until March 2020, twice a year,
What the hell?
That was in court. He said
And
that
he
in
said
court.
that in court.
Yes,
Good for
he
him.
did.
We
He
had
most
to
certainly did.
subpoena all these guys, and
Jeez gracious.
Louise.
Who was, and I don't know, you guys talk about who the lawyer is that helped you guys with this part of it, or was it just you guys?
no, it was Paul Sherman. He's got a
Sherman.
practice here in Springfield, and
Shout out to Paul Sherman.
Yeah.
he was great. He was our Sherman tank, and we had we had just the one lawyer, and they had it was kind of like a Simpsons episode where they're Montgomery Burns. They got like a whole bunch of lawyers, and we got our one Paul Sherman, and he's sticking it
The
to
Sherman
him.
tank. Does he have a shirt yet that says Sherman tank?
Well, he should.
We're going to make him one.
We need to make an ad.
We really do.
I saw some funny videos for lawyers that somebody showed me the other day, and it was like some lawyers were being like superheroes and fighting off the bad guys. I was like, we could do that for him.
That would be Paul, it sounds like. So you guys, it takes a lot of gumption in the first place to want to take on a city government or county government or any government at that point because, like you said, there's one person, then you have all their suits that are in the room. And how do you guys fight from beginning to end? You had to compound all this evidence that shows something that they already knew, which is really interesting to me, that they already knew that it was public access, but they tried to deny that point enough to make you guys go to court instead of saying, yeah, you're right. Let's not spend all this county money on lawyers. Let's just say that you're right. Now let's try to fix it. Instead, they put up a fight.
Well, the county had 2 lawyers, and the landowners had 3. I got
What basis did they have, though?
but on the county
Right.
on the county side, I got to try to be a little balanced, although I think they were wrong as hell.
Sure.
They didn't have good road records before 2014 before they got, because they didn't even have someone in charge of roads in Christian County.
Okay.
It was just the commission that would kind of do it. So
And they would divvy out the projects or whatever.
They had crappy records. So when they brought
Still,
in their
it's
roads,
Lindenlure.
I know. But when they brought in their roads administrator, Miranda Beatles, and she's
Fabulous
got,
person.
She's got links here,
Yeah.
but she had been away a long time, so she didn't necessarily know that road or anything, and it's not there in their records. And so she was like, okay, it's not a road. But what really made me angry was they wouldn't see our evidence and meet with us. And well, she would when I came to bug her at her office, but the commission wouldn't.
Good thing you did, though.
And they were just dead set on, no, it's private, it's closed, we're not even meeting with you. And there's 3 ways you can prove that a road is public. It's through statutory, showing that, it's the laws and so forth, and they didn't have good records. We couldn't do it that way. I thought we might have been able to, but it wasn't quite enough. And then the others are prescriptive easement and common law. Those ways of showing something is public is precisely for when the statutory stuff, the paperwork isn't in place.
Right.
And they say, okay, well, people have been going there for so long, they've been grading it, obviously it's public in practice, even if your paperwork is bad. And that's how we want it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So it was more implied at that point than it was officially recorded. But to me, it's the county. They record every single transaction. I'm in the mortgage business with central banks, so I know whenever titles transfer or there are easements that have to be recorded, it's going to be recorded as some type of easement and how it's categorized. Yeah. So to me, it would seem like the county would already know that we know this is first of all, it's Lindenlure. It's one of the oldest communities in the area. And all of those streets were probably one of the very first streets recorded in the area, I would assume,
We've had former county commissioners like Chom Chudamelka, who was commissioner for like 10 years from the mid-'90s to the early 2000s. He came and testified in court. He said, of course it's public. I had the sheriff enforcing no parking. We graded it.
Right, it was enforced. There was a long stretch where the sheriff did go down and patrol and keep things, settled down there. And then I think they just gave up and let it go, and then and of course
I don't buy it, man.
Well, they didn't want the trouble. Like there was trouble there sometimes. The sheriff didn't want the hassle. They're overwhelmed, like you said, with lots of things. And the commissioner's got buddies who live over there who want it closed. And luckily, he's not our commissioner anymore. I've got a lot more hope in our current commissioner.
They're
Lynn
great
Morris.
now,
and so it was like a perfect storm for them to basically steal this public access.
Unreal.
And if
they just weren't expecting you guys.
Right. If we hadn't organized, they would have gotten away with it, like in Scooby-Doo or something.
Yeah, David and Adam, I mean, they took this on out of their own pocket.
Right.
To start off with.
Now, see, that's what's most impressive.
And it's and they're still liable today for everything. And we have been pretty successful in fundraising and had a lot of benefactors who have understood where we're coming from and helped us out. And that has been really the people that have donated, bought T-shirts and everything. Those are the ones that have carried this thing through. David kind of set the platform and got a good team together. We all follow David and Adam.
Financially, all I did was say, if we don't fundraise enough, I'll pay the lawyer. I underwrote it.
Fair enough.
And we had people from unemployed people giving us $5 saying, this is all I can afford. And I'm
but they believed in
I
it.
was just as grateful for that as the philanthropists who gave us a couple of thousand,
Absolutely.
Everyone was just coming because it was important to so many people.
Right. So Ryan, from Backcountry, what was your capacity in all of this? Did you help with some research? Did you help with what was your capacity in all this, Ryan?
Yeah. So actually, David, that's how we connected. Was he reached out to us through our Facebook page, which is Missouri Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and just through that had conversation with us. First, as you know, a lot of these are ambiguous. They are gray areas on some of these access points. But this, so BHA, we understand private owners' land rights and we support that, but we also acknowledge the right of the public. And so this this case is one that, David sent us what he had captured in the information. We were able to review it with our board. We spoke with our national chapter, and we're able to go through and actually did an online fundraiser for just specifically for the River Access Coalition. We've done fundraising through our internal chapter here in the state, and then been able to do a couple rounds of donations following that raffle as well. So because just like David, we're a and the River Access Coalition, we're a grassroots organization. It's young people, old people, with children, not a lot of money just sitting around. But with these types of things, we found the only way to go up against, large, wealthy landowners or corporate landowners, counties that are just turning a blind eye, is through the litigation process. And that's, when it's, you don't have a huge bank account to draw from. It's just through the power of community that we're able to do this.
And that's what every nonprofit relies on. But, being that I'm a huge outdoorsman, I love, floating, hiking, fishing, whatever I can do outdoors, I'm a huge fan of. But I also know what it's like from that standpoint as well. Whenever you're floating down a river and there's 5,000 people on that water with you, and it sucks because some people, it's just like bringing enough gum for the class. Some people go do stupid things on river banks, and maybe they do get up into someone's property. But I do know one thing too: with all of those people that go floating, and there's that many people on the water, most people respect what's beyond the gravel bank, right? We all know it's an unspoken rule. You don't go past someone's riverbank, right? Once you get past the weeds, you've gone too far, and that's someone's property. I've seen people stand out on riverbanks with shotguns in their hands to keep people from stopping on a Saturday when they know there's 5,000 people on the water. People do go that far to protect their land around here. And so there's kind of a gray area for me on how hard it must be for someone who does own river property. And I almost bought river property right upstream from Hootentown, but that was one of my factors in my head, was how many people are going to stop on this and create problems for me if I'm out here trying to enjoy my property. It doesn't happen often, but there are some stupid people out there.
And legally, they have the right to do that up to the high water mark.
Up to the high water mark, right.
As long as they don't cause any damage or anything, it's completely
littering is also another thing.
Yeah, and you're going to find littering in any park or anywhere. The side of the road, I have to pick up litter when I mow the top of my property by the road every time.
I get it.
It's no different.
I get
that's
it.
That's the balance that's got to be struck. Like, I mean, we have to respect the landowners and so forth, but if you're going to buy riverfront property, something comes with the territory.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like moving next to a farm and then complaining about cow farts or something.
Well, and that's also a good segue into what does the future look like? Number one, how do you guys do cleanups on the areas that you guys are working in? Because I know Lindenlure sometimes it was pretty bad.
I personally
but that's because nobody was personally going out and doing it. And I'm the type of guy that picks up trash everywhere I go.
My grandsons and I,
okay,
we go down there, we pick up trash, and we have found times lots of trash. The last time I was down there was just a few weeks ago, and I think I may have gotten a half a sack full of it was hardly, and most of it was stuff that had washed down,
right?
So in the summertime, of course, there's more, but that's to be expected.
Well, and this was a big part of this whole entire group organizing too, is it wasn't just get access, it was take care of it in the future. Like and that's a good thing, I think, for the landowners to know too. It's like, hey, they're going to make this thing open, but they're also going to maintain
that's what they
should
have been more open to, was what's the plan once you guys get going on this? Because I think everybody in the Ozark community, and I'm not even in the Ozark community, but I know more about that spot than most people, but to me, if someone's going to be a good steward of what's going to happen if this thing does open, because it's not like you just open it up and let a free-for-all occur. No. You guys are actually going in and keeping it clean. You're making sure that things look nice for the landowners.
Right.
Yeah. So they should have really respected it.
We try to educate people down there as well. We'll have we'll go down there and build a little fire and make hot dogs and have lemonade for people, sell some T-shirts and educate them. And so many people, they hear about it's going to be there, and they just come down and, drop us a 20 and say, we appreciate what you're doing. And others, that are families down there. I can remember this summer thinking, when the gas prices were so high and it was so full of families down there who probably otherwise couldn't vacation anywhere that cost them very much money. Right. It's been a rough few years, and
they go to the river.
They go to the river, and there's it's there for them, and it should stay that way. Yeah, every state's different on their their laws on public access, but we're still pretty fortunate if we protect them here in Missouri.
Absolutely, and that's one lead into as far as not just Linden Lure. This is a coalition now. So what other projects are you guys working on for access points that we could be familiar with?
This is part of the problem. Our membership has been coming with us with information about all these other access points that we're in the process of losing. Like a really popular one in Taney County, Good Hope Hollow.
Yeah.
There was a low water bridge there, and the Taney County redid it with this monstrosity, and then they put railings and blocked off any possible parking. The landowner suddenly came in with purple, and they took it away.
Wow. And they spent a lot of money to do it.
They spent a lot of public money to take away access. They didn't have to do it that way. It was intentionally done, it looks like, to block access. And so we've been harassing Taney County with letters and so forth.
Is that on the James River?
It's on Bull Creek.
Bull Creek. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then there's another one just like a mile or two away where this landowner has taken a road and put basically, well, praying's a good way to meet the Lord, but trespassing's faster. And he's basically blocked off the road. And one of our members went to the sheriff's department and said, that road is public right to the river, isn't it? And the sheriff says, yeah, and he's got it on video.
Oh.
Yet that sign's still there, and our people are getting harassed by the landowner each time they go. And then we've got another spot on Swan Creek where, barbed wire and all kinds of things on the county easement. And it's a lot. So we've been trying to deal with some issues ourselves as best we can. Others, we've been talking to the MDC, but that's tough too,
DNR and stuff too, I'm sure has a little bit to do with it.
There's some good people there, but the problem is bigger than we are, and that's why with allies like backcountry hunters and anglers, we're hoping to force multiply and maybe get legislative.
I was going to say, I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be more of it'd be nice if we could turn all these access points to like official state protected access, put-ins,
just like you see along the James
and then they
River.
have park rangers and stuff like that.
That's the thing.
Usually that's who it is, or county sheriffs.
There's not enough MDC accesses. Like backcountry hunters and anglers and us, we went to speak with some people at the MDC, and they're like, well, there's 250 something accesses in Missouri. Isn't that a lot? That's not a lot.
It's not a lot.
How many miles of stream are there for two?
Make think about how many gas stations are in the state versus. I mean, you need that level of access.
Or you want to put up a church? Go ahead. Anyway,
and like the Finley River and Bull Creek, Swan Creek, there's not a single one.
No, there's not. And that's what I floated Bull Creek my whole entire life, and it's usually you're putting in it like a low water bridge or something like that, and you're taking out of the low water bridge, but there's not official accesses. So a lot of those landowners get super upset because there's 20, 30, 40, 50 cars sometime at any time up against their land, but that's all the access you have. So really, to me, if you guys are doing this, which I'm very thankful you guys are before we wrap up, but moving forward, what can we do to help you guys? Are there fundraisers going to be happening that we need to know about? I mean, we will follow your Facebook page. So River Access Coalition on Facebook. Keep an eye on that. Do you guys have any announcements you want to talk about right now that you have fundraisers coming up for? Because I would love to support it myself.
Yeah, we're still fundraising. They appealed the lawsuit that we won. We had the hearing for that appeal January 11th, and the ruling's still not out. So we're still paying legal bills, and we got a GoFundMe page, and we're going to have more yard sales we do every year, and we'll be at the river as well.
Do you guys do a big fundraiser once a year that is like your token day for this?
Well, we did have, it hasn't been annual, we wish it was. We did have a pizza night at the Millsap farm.
Oh. Yeah,
where
they were real good about
Mr. Millsap
pizza night for us.
Yeah, and we had a full house, over probably almost 400 people. We had silent auctions.
Jeez,
we had,
because Millsap Farms does this Thursday evening pizza night whenever the weather's nice, basically spring to fall.
Okay.
Millsap Farms are pretty cool. Yeah.
And where is Millsap Farms?
It's just north of Springfield, so it's
up Flintstone, right?
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes from here.
Perfect.
We need to get him on the show.
Yes, you really do. Well,
he's one of our board members too. Curtis
cool.
Millsap, and he's an avid outdoorsman, organic farmer too.
Well, and just that whole entire setup he has there is just really cool. Like
I've heard of
farms in general is just a pretty neat setup.
And Ryan, while we've got you on the phone before we wrap up, are there anything we can do for you as far as do you have online fundraisers, things like that we can keep an eye out for, Ryan?
Yeah, you can always join Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. It's just backcountryhunters.org. You can join in those funds. If you're a resident in Missouri, those funds come to our chapter. And then things just like this with the River Access Coalition, other issues, we do put the funds towards that type of effort. Additionally, we do river cleanups. We do education. We're trying to work, one thing you kind of highlighted is, as these access points go away, but what we see at the grander scheme is when those access points go away, the level of effort it takes to continue to engage with the outdoors decreases. Yeah. And so generationally, we're losing people who are connecting with the outdoors. And when that happens, it just becomes, kind of almost a decline in culture in terms of being connected to community. So
I agree 100% because those communities were built around these things. Yeah, like Ozark, Rogersville, all is Lindenlure. Sparta.
And ultimately, the risk is it essentially becomes a culture of the haves. The ones with the access, the private access, right, and the have-nots, which is everybody else that just can no longer reach it.
Well, what's funny about that is it seems like the people that eventually gain access to that stuff, or they block something off, they never use it. To be honest with
that's
you,
the irony.
Right? It is the irony. They're like, I just want to look at it, make sure it's clean, but nobody gets to enjoy it.
It's like when you buy a trampoline for your kids.
Yeah.
They want to increase their property values.
Right, and property values too. But to me, it almost would do the opposite, because being in real estate, I see what traffic does for people's property values, and the more people that see this as they're floating by, they're like, gosh, I wish I could own that. You never know who's got that money that's going to go buy that, and they're going to one up the person that is trying to buy it too. Right. So land values do go up on those cases. Sorry, but
no. Well, they do traffic counts for like businesses. Yeah. They should start doing river counts for those properties.
I would do it all day if that was my job.
That would be a great job.
Shoot, sit there with the pitch counter and my chair,
and of course you would have to float it. All the time. You have to float the river all the time.
And the fishing pole.
Well, and we've got aspirations of getting out on the rivers as well. Me and David talked about doing a 3-day float trip from 160 Bridge in Nixa all the way down to the lake on the James River. I've done the James River watershed basin cleanups and things like that, and I love those events. They have big draws to a lot of those. Mm-hmm. And watching it growing up from what it used to be, the James River would be a river we never would really tell people we would get in.
You're right.
Some people still have that mantra that, it's dirty, it's from Springfield Lake, it's super dirty, you're going to have, 6-eyed fish you're going to pull out and stuff. And, growing up with that, there was a ton of trash, though. I mean, growing up, you'd always float by and you'd be like, oh, my God, I wish somebody would do something about this. The James River Water Basin Partnership came in, and they do a cleanup once or twice a year, and I usually go do those. And they have a great event afterwards that's in Springfield. But watching how that's changed the landscape down there has been my favorite part of going and doing those cleanups. And all I can do is fill up my canoe, right? But then once you get to the end and you see that there's 3 40-yard dumpsters that are full and there's overflow coming in next to it, it's almost like a dream, because you're like, finally somebody is taking the initiative to clean this place up, and I'm not the only one that's thought this for all these years. And to see you guys doing what you're doing is very commendable, and I thank you guys personally for doing what you're doing. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other people that are watching this that are going to be thanking you from behind a screen. We want to be able to support you, though, so we want you guys to come back, talk about future projects. If you guys do have any fundraisers that you're going to do, please let us know, because we'd like to boost it as well. We'd like to show up and come do some things with you guys.
Look for raffling off of kayaks. We're pretty good at that, too.
Yeah, Ozark Mountain
Trading Company
donated a kayak for us last year that we raffled out, so they helped us out, too. And
man, I tell you what,
real appreciative of that.
My son was up for Spring King at Highlandville Schools, and he's in 2nd grade. And last year I did they do a fundraiser every year for their spring carnival. He got voted he was supposed to be the king for that little Highlandville school. So my job as the dad was to fundraise. The best things that I got for that auction that went for the most were kayaks and coolers. Yeah. And I was very surprised that the kayak that I bought with my own money was my donation. It went for at least double what it was supposed to go for. And I'm like, well, this was just a little small Ozark Trails kayak. So so everybody loves kayaks. Do more of those things, because they go for pretty good money at auctions.
Anything related to floating, right?
Anything related to floating. But you guys doing what you're doing with the generations that are coming up, they're all going to be the ones that feel the repercussions of this. So you guys aren't just doing this for us. Like what Ryan said, this is generational. So we really appreciate what you guys are doing for our kids and our kids' kids too. So thank you guys all. Ryan, thanks to everybody for coming on. Rick, David, thank you so much for coming on the show today to tell us your story. Absolutely, guys.
Yes,
Anytime we can support what you are doing, please let us know. Reach out to me or David. But everybody, please keep an eye on the Facebook pages for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers and for the River Access Coalition. Again, guys, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll make sure that we keep following you guys and keep exploring the Ozarks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Thanks again for listening to Exploring the Ozarks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media channels to help us keep exploring the stories of the Ozarks. If you're looking for more ways to support our show, we have sponsorships for businesses and Patreon for individual supporters. Check the links in the description for more details. Thanks for your support, and keep exploring the Ozarks.